Hi, Xin. Welcome to this podcast.
Hello, Wilson. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me on this podcast.
To kick off, this interview, I will ask you the first question, Xin. What
Mm-hmm.
exactly do you do as a freedom coach?
Hmm. Okay, so as a freedom coach, I help people to achieve freedom. But okay,
Yes.
when we hear freedom, sometimes people think of financial freedom or something, but that's not the freedom that I'm talking about. Yeah, but it's a freedom to be who you truly are in this world. So yeah, in short, my mission is, I help young adults
Mm-hmm.
um, to who might feel trapped by societal pressures
Mm-hmm.
to find out who they truly are and to live a life that is um, true to themselves. Yeah.
Yes. Amazing. Amazing.
Mm.
Yes. And what is your vision? What is the vision in this activity?
Well, I envision like a younger generation that is empowered to
Yes.
live life live a life that is aligned with who they are. Yeah,
Yes.
and to
Yes.
able to rise above the fears or the
Mm.
conditionings that they have been under, perhaps when they were growing up. So yeah, like
Mm-mm. Yeah.
empower.
Amazing.
Mm.
Yes. So when did you start this journey, Xin?
Um. Oh well, so now I'm currently 26 years old. So I myself I'm also a young adult who is on this journey
Mm-mm.
to like live the life that is true to myself. So I would say that
Mm-hmm.
I'm still like I'm not like a coming from a like more um very like experienced position, but
Mm-hmm.
in say like the last few years I think I've made a lot of breakthroughs, and also that was when I was like going through my quarter life existential crisis. So
Yeah.
I I think like a crisis is when there's a lot of breakthroughs, right? So I mean
Mm-mm.
a crisis gives you a lot of opportunities for breakthroughs, and that's um why in the last few years I would say maybe like last 3 years or so,
Mm-hmm.
um I was yeah, like that was when I was going through some major transformations,
Yeah.
and uh it led me to find coaching as a calling. Like I
Yes.
wanted to be a coach, and actually I have myself been through life coaching, like, and that was one of the catalysts for my transformation. I found
Mm-hmm.
that mentorship was is very valuable
Mm-mm.
in helping me make those breakthroughs. So um
Yes.
yeah, I think in the maybe last 2 years, I then started to like work on developing, my coaching niche, like
Mm-mm.
who am I gonna help and how. Like I
Mm-mm.
developed some materials to help with that. Like I have a program. Then now, I'm still like working, with some people to test that out. So I'm still in the early stages of yeah, what the vision, the big vision that I have for my uh coaching activity. But
Yes.
uh yeah, like so far this journey has been really really fulfilling, I would say.
Amazing. Amazing.
Mm.
Yeah. I feel like you really like yeah, like you said, going through a lot of breakthroughs. This is the
Mm.
thing. Yeah, I can I can really relate. Because I kind of do the same path as well. And yeah, before your transformation, you said that you've been through a lot of breakthroughs in the
Mm.
last 2 years. And my question is, before your transformation, uh, what happened to you somehow? What was your life experiences?
Mm. Um. Oh well, so I was, yeah, like I was the person, that I was, I am trying to help now. So,
Yes.
yeah, I was mm, kind of like inside the box of what I would call, like the social constraints and like the kind of conditioning that I've received, from my growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, like since I was young, like I felt that I thought that maybe, so I started questioning some things about like the
Yes.
way that I was expected to live.
Mm-hmm.
Like, um okay, so for example, okay, so yeah, like I'm from Singapore. So
Mm-hmm.
in Singapore, from young students, there's this emphasis on studying hard. So from young, I was
Yes.
always being told to study hard.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, like study. Then like as far as I can remember, yeah, since I entered school, that has been kind of like told to me.
Mm.
And yeah, like and I think since I entered school, yeah, like my life has been kind of like focused on studying.
Mm.
And I always wondered if there could be something more than that. Like, can my life be more about studying? Okay, because in Singapore, the academic pressure is really high.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I mean, there are reasons for this. Well, you can say that like other Asian countries are like that as well. In general, there's more emphasis on academics,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
I think
It's
there's
true.
also other factors like such as like the history of the country where we basically rely a lot on like human capital. So
Yeah.
education is seen to be like the key to success. So I
Mm.
mean, all these things are things that I learned only after I got older. But
Mm.
as a kid, you just receive this information and you just take it, right? Like it
Yeah.
it is you don't have that critical thinking yet.
Yeah. You
So
cannot analyze yet. You still. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-mm.
So I just thought like I kind of, thought something my life could be something more because it can't just be all about studying. I mean there's really a lot of pressure like it's as if my duty was to study. And
Mm-mm.
um yeah, everything I do had to be about getting good grades.
Good grades. Yeah.
Um and yeah, like
If,
um
yeah. Even know about um yeah it didn't help you. I think it didn't help you to figure out your your identity, because like you said, it was so much focused on the
yeah,
studying. Yeah. How did you
yeah.
feel about personal development? How did you feel about as a person growing
Uh
up? Yeah. How did you feel about
yeah.
this?
Uh Yeah, I think I suffered some kind of identity crisis, really. Like my self-esteem, I remember, was very low. Um, and actually, I did well in school. That's the ironic part because, like, some people might think if you didn't do well in school, then you will really struggle in this system,
Mm-mm.
which, cares a lot about your grades. But the irony is that I did well in school. You know,
Mm.
I even got first place in school, and I
Yeah.
actually was in a position where I was doing well in the system and I was being praised for it. And
Mm-mm.
people, adults, like they praised me and like talk about me as if like I had a very bright future ahead of me.
Mm-mm.
And as a child, I mean, like, yeah, I was happy to be praised, but it's very strange because I thought like, seriously, does that mean like how can you know that I'll have a bright future ahead just because of my performance now? Like,
Mm.
and to me,
Yeah.
it doesn't really make sense because are you saying that those people who don't do well won't have a bright future? Like, I just feel that that is, intuitively as a child, I felt that was wrong, but I think
Yes.
that
Yeah.
was, yeah, like, like children have a kind of perspective that the adults might have lost. Yeah. So, and that was my perspective back then. I felt something was really off about this.
Mm.
And yeah, why I was having low self-esteem was because exactly that was the focus on like just this part, like studying well, studying hard. There was too much focus on this, and so my identity was just this.
Yeah, I see.
Like people would just say, "Oh, like you are book smart." Like I mean, you are smart. And I just keep hearing that. Oh, you are smart. Or they also say I'm quiet. Like because I was a very quiet kid. Like I'm an introvert, right? Like, but they just see these surface things like, oh, you're smart, oh, you're quiet. And I would say in my childhood, like growing up, the only two words I heard about me was these two words. Then
Oh,
I felt like, is there nothing more to me? Is there
yeah,
not just is there any nothing more to life, but is there nothing more to me than these two
yeah,
things? And as a kid, I wasn't able to like, tell myself, be more objective and tell myself what was good about me. Like for example, uh, that I had other good things like being thoughtful, being kind. Yeah, like I wish that people would have highlighted these things, but the fact is that like most people just focus on these things like, oh, whether you did well in school, and like there was just too much emphasis given to that. And
yeah, yes,
because of
yes.
that, I was having this identity crisis. I thought like, who am I? Like who am I? And especially as a quiet kid, um, you know, I actually had a lot of thoughts. Like I think looking back, I was a mature kid. I had a lot of thoughts about like meaning of life even as a kid. And then like kind of as a
Oh,
result, I was a bit like out of. I would say I'm a bit of a um like didn't really fit in probably. Uh
yes.
like I felt a bit out of the box like since I was a kid.
Okay. If it a little bit, yeah, different than any, everybody else, like a little bit like yeah, aside.
Yeah, I felt that. And I didn't know how to cope with that because I was just being put in school, right? Like I had to be in the environment. I can't choose not to be in the environment. So I think because of all these things, like being misunderstood by other people, and then um uh I mean as a quiet person, and then also just being seen as for like one attribute of myself, like
Yeah,
being academically inclined, like
yeah,
I felt like who am I? Like I
yes, yes. Just,
my
just a little part of
yeah,
yourself, right?
yeah, my true self, like I felt there was a voice inside me that wants to express itself, but it's being suppressed.
Mm,
Like
mm-mm.
I could, I don't know like who I am, and so I think because of all these things, I was, yeah, like when I was a teenager, I was going through depression. Yeah, I think
Mm-mm.
it was coming from all these things.
Yeah, uh-uh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all these labels, we put on you didn't help you somehow really to, yeah, to really express, who you truly are fully. This is when,
Mhm.
yeah, this is a,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So, um, yeah, I went through a bit of the identity crisis, and then, um, yeah, and then my existential crisis was then coming up because,
yes, yes, yeah. Mm-mm.
because so as I got older, like I was trying to understand like why, like I had to do the things that was everyone was doing, and
Mm-mm.
why there was such strong expectations, to follow a certain pathway. So
Mm-mm.
I think I asked my parents before, like, why do I have to study so hard? Uh, and then they didn't really answer my question. I mean,
Oh,
they did, but it was in a kind of patronizing way. Like, it
mm,
was like, oh, if you are not doing this, what can you do? Well, you just have to follow everyone. And then also like, oh, you have to get a job in the end, right? Like,
yeah,
so
yeah,
yeah. But that didn't really answer my question because I think the pressure that we go through in our education system is far too much to for to if you are gonna say the purpose is just to find a job, I think it's a bit too much. So
yes, yeah,
it's
yeah. They don't give something really deep about a really deeper reason than just like get a job, for a young person, who is
Yeah.
growing. This is not enough. You're really right. I totally agree with you. It's
Yeah.
like lacking of depth, lacking of sense, and
Mm.
yeah. Do you feel
Yeah.
this? Yeah.
And I think as a child, most adults assume that children don't really like know much, but actually children are quite sensitive, right? And the questions they ask sometimes really have a very philosophical basis, right? Like when and I feel like the adults, like sometimes don't really recognize that. So
Yes.
and so I couldn't be satisfied with their answer because I felt like from what I was observing around me, the pressure is just way too much. That I
Mm-mm.
don't think that this justifies like this is ever justified by the reason of just finding a job or a good job. Maybe what they mean is like a good job. And like
Uh,
that generation, they
yeah.
think that a
Sorry,
good
it
job
was
is
cutting a little bit.
okay. I think what
Yes,
they
yeah, yeah.
mean
It's
is
good now.
a
Yeah.
good job. And by good job, they mean like a high paying job. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so what they're really saying is I have to study hard because I should land a good job. And then
Mm.
this idea of a good job is perhaps not even a job that I want because now I know that, it's
Yes.
about
Yes.
so-called like prestigious jobs, like white-collar jobs. And I think due to the like kind of the way that my the economy in my country works. It's like kind of like
Mm-mm.
um, people are expected to do white collar jobs more than blue
Yes.
jobs. Yeah, like so
Mm-mm.
it was never presented to me as an option when I was young that I could be
Mm.
doing a blue collar job. And
Oh.
I mean I find that to be very problematic now as an adult
Mm-mm.
because there's some you know not some there's actually a lot of elitism in that
Yeah.
which I don't morally agree with. I really don't agree that like even from young I felt that how could you like look down on certain jobs. But parents do that. They sometimes unconsciously tell their kids like, oh, if you don't
Yes.
study hard you're gonna end up doing this job, and that is so wrong. Right? Like
This
you
is the
know
programming, right? They are, yeah, this is the programming, the programming thing that they're doing it like unconsciously. Most of them actually, they don't think about what they are doing to that children, when they do that kind of thing,
mm,
Uh, yes, yeah, yeah. It's like a, yeah, like a, they try, like you said, the pressure is there,
mm,
the pressure is right there when, they try to configure you to fit to their, expectations. And
mm,
yeah, and without asking really like really not without asking what you really want for your life, they kind of force you somehow, like you said, to do that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I think that has to do with like um because I'm a Chinese. Okay, in Singapore, like 75% of the population is
Ch-
ethnically Chinese. Yeah.
Chinese, yes. Mm-mm.
So we are overall a multicultural society, but
Yeah.
I would say because of the fact that majority are Chinese, the
Mm-mm.
kind of Chinese some kind of Chinese cultural backdrop is quite
Yeah.
influential in
Mm-mm.
like our country. So
Mm.
like for example, Chinese values hardworking,
Mm-mm.
discipline, and also kind of success, outward kind of success. Like,
Yeah.
and your success is not just your own, it is tied to your family. So if let's say you do well in school, it's a family pride, like, it's, wow, a very glorious
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, I see. Yeah.
Whereas if you
Family
do
pride.
poorly, then they will say, oh, it's a shame on the family. So now it's like, in Western, probably they don't, in Western cultures, they probably don't like, um, your thing is just your thing, not like too much reflecting on your
Yeah.
family,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. It's a little
But
bit
I
more like
feel that
that, yeah. Mm-mm.
in my culture, it's because of this thing. So I used to ask myself, why do like a lot of people around me, like I mean young people,
Mm-mm.
um, do the thing they don't really want to do, despite, I mean, do the thing that they don't really want to do, even when it's, like, so hard. And
yeah,
I realized that to some degree it's this cultural thing, that, yeah, like, you, of course, every kid wants to make their parents happy, right? They want to,
yes, yeah. It's really
like,
cultural, right?
yeah, it's a very natural thing. And I think this is just because this culture, so it makes it even more amplified. And um
Yes, yeah,
and this is also good for the country's development, because um they want people to have a strong motivation, right? Otherwise we
yeah,
will not develop, and
yeah,
we will
yeah,
survive as a small nation. So it's like
yeah.
there's so many factors at play, and but these are things that I only realized when I was older. When I was younger, I was just
Cannot
feeling the
understand that. Yeah,
pain. Yeah, I couldn't understand it. I was just feeling the pain of being pushed towards a certain direction, and
yeah,
without much kind of depth. There's not much
yeah.
depth to the reason that I was given for it. And I couldn't accept it, because I'm someone, I need the kind of meaning or reason for what I do. I can't accept just blindly following. But
Yeah,
back then I was just in an environment where I was not really empowered, to make my own decisions, because
yeah,
I was in a system.
mm,
Yeah. And so if everyone around me was studying really hard,
yeah,
I just followed along. I also had to study really hard.
yeah, yeah,
And um yeah, so I think that existential crisis just kind of piled up, because um I was giving so much of my life and energy and time. I was really in a really bad shape. Like, I was depressed, and I was not sleeping much. I was like being so stressed and so anxious about all the exams. Like, it was as if you do badly for exam, your life is over. Back then I had this
oh,
impression. Yeah, I had this impression that if I don't do well, that's the end of the world. But you see, my world was only education. So it's
yeah,
like,
yeah, 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 right.
but it's a very, very like distorted thinking, because obviously your life is not going to end if you don't do well in school. But
Yeah,
we couldn't realize that. And I think most students have this catastrophic thinking that, yeah, their life is over if they do badly, or if they fall behind. Yeah, so there's this like kind of characteristic being said about Singaporeans,
yeah,
uh, that we are very afraid of losing and afraid of dying. It's like kind of like a trait. It's connected to, like, I mean, I can talk about the history of it, like, because we are an immigrant society, so our, like, ancestors, they were in a survival mode, and
yes,
so
yeah,
they had this fear of, like, being left out, because that also probably means their, like, survival is threatened or something. So
yes, yeah,
there's some kind of ancestral trauma going on there. But like,
yeah, yeah. I can see it.
again, I didn't know that, but I knew, yeah, like, this culture was real, because everyone was just afraid to lose out. And so another well-known thing is that, like, parents invest a lot of money to send their children to go to tuition, which is like extra classes, outside of school.
Yeah,
And that also didn't make sense to me, because um that a lot of people say that the education system in my country is really good. And if it's really good, why do you need to send your kids to more classes outside of school? You know what I mean? Like, it's a kind of
oh,
counterintuitive. It's like,
yes, yes,
yeah,
yeah.
the reason is, like, more like they are kind of wanting to be better. It's like, this is not enough. You need to be better.
Continue a little bit. Yeah,
So I think the
yeah,
reason is more coming out from fear of losing out, or rather, like, desire
yes,
of wanting to get ahead of everyone.
yeah,
Because, yeah, like, I felt there was this mentality that never was enough. Like, you gotta keep being better, like, climb to the top,
yeah, yeah.
and I would say this is just a recipe for disaster. I mean, recipe for unhappiness.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree about this. Yeah,
Like,
and
when is enough? yeah, like I never felt that people around me felt that something was enough. There was always something more that you could do to push yourself. I mean, this could be a good thing. Like I agree that as a virtue, like especially in like a Chinese culture, it's like, striving for excellence, striving to be better, and
Yeah,
hard work, persevering is all very good. But I feel that in this context, it's like a little misguided because we are now pushing for something that we are not sure what for.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not your vision anymore, as a young, generation today. Like you said, your parent generation, they was, in this, surviving mode that you are not anymore
Mm,
today as a young generation.
mm.
And yeah,
Exactly. I feel that growing up, I'm very lucky. Like I'm honestly like really, really privileged. I'm really privileged as a Singaporean of this
mm-mm,
generation because I'm
yeah,
living, a very materialistic, materialistically comfortable life.
mm-hmm,
And I do not have to worry too much about money. I think
yeah,
life here is so good. Like people tell me that, yeah, well, like Singapore, have achieved like a economic miracle, and
yeah,
and all these things. And, yeah, I feel it as a new generation. But then at the same time, like the attitudes have been slower to catch up. You know,
mm,
um, my I can feel that like my parents' generation and my generation have a huge gap, like
gap
in
in
terms
between.
of yeah, in
Yeah,
terms of how we view life, and it's sometimes
yeah,
really
yeah, yeah,
frustrating because
yes, yeah, mm-mm,
yeah, like it's really hard because it's really hard to talk about this
mm-mm,
honestly because again there's this idea of like filial piety in Chinese culture. It's like you have to be very grateful for your parents, um
yeah,
for what they have done to like raise you up. I agree with this, but I think sometimes it's like because of this filial piety thing, it makes it harder for us to speak out, because if we speak out about these things, it might seem like we are not being grateful.
yeah, yes. There like
Yeah.
a misunderstanding, because of that gap, like you said, the gap, between those two generations, those visions, that doesn't match anymore. And
Mm,
yeah, yeah, for sure. Your parent generation, yeah, they feel like you are not grateful because you are, expecting something else of your life that they're not,
mm,
they don't understand why you're expecting that from their vision. Yeah.
mm.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so it's like it's a little difficult for me to question it, but I still question it, like given my nature, I do like to question these things. And
Yeah.
I guess I observe that many people around me, they are one of their fears of trying to live a life true to themselves is also because out of this fear of not um like not being filial. So
Hello, yeah, it's starting.
yeah, so I guess like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
young
it's better now.
generation,
Yeah.
one of the thing that holds them back,
Mm-hmm.
I guess one of the things that holds the young generation back from living a life more true to themselves is also out of this fear of
Yes.
looking unfilial. So
Mm.
unfilial means you are like you don't follow your parents. Like, oh, your parents, like did so much for you,
Mm-mm.
and you can't follow what they want. You make them unhappy. Oh, that's very unfilial. Um,
Yeah.
that
Yes. Yeah. Mm-mm.
Yeah, there is this kind of thinking, and it is a very difficult dilemma because it poses a moral issue. It's like now you choose
Exactly.
what you want to do, you become immoral. Like
Immoral.
it's
Yeah. Oh, this is
it's
almost
it's
unbearable.
it's like mm,
Mm-mm.
so it's like it's a quite challenging,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, so like there are these kind of things, this kind of struggle. So back to the thing about my existential crisis.
Yeah.
um I was just like thinking like, yeah, why am I doing all this for? Like I don't even know why, but
Mm-mm.
how come I am so stressed and I'm just trying to catch up and not fall behind, and I'm doing so much.
Yeah.
Um and it's not matching up. People are telling me that I need to do this to survive, but from what I see, I'm living a life of like pretty affluent life, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we are living in a generation of excess. We actually have too many things right now.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
And
Too many
the worst
comfort. Mm-hmm.
the worst thing is that there are things that I actually care about, which I'm being discouraged from caring about. For
Mm-hmm. Like
example,
what?
yeah, for example, I care about social issues. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I care about the fact that there are people who are suffering
Yeah.
from like, let's say like so I'm actually yeah like quite interested in psychology when I was young,
Mm.
and
Okay.
philosophy as well. I was more into this kind of subjects, but unfortunately the school didn't offer this subject, so I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
even like study it, you know. But I was like more into it out of my own interest, and I think like I just feel that like quite disturbed by this kind of like social issues, you know.
I see.
Um
Yeah. It's cutting. Yeah. Um. Yeah. All good now. Yeah.
yeah, so I was actually more concerned about social issues. For
Yes. Mm-hmm.
example, like mental health issues. You know, there's such a
Mm-hmm.
I could feel because told you I went through depression when I was a teen, and
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I felt that the stigma, mental health stigma, was so strong. I couldn't get help at all.
Mm.
Like when I was trying to get help for that, I realized that so many people don't understand what this condition is about, and that actually
Mm.
made me like worse because I was now being kind of misunderstood, you know, like for
Yeah. Mm-mm. I
like
see.
going through something that I don't even know what is happening.
Mm.
And
Mm-mm.
also there were some like yeah mental health issues like there's some kind of tragedy that in my family as well. Like I had
Yes.
relatives who committed suicide, and
Oh yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah. You told
was
me that. Yeah.
actually very traumatic for me. It
Mm-mm.
happened when I was young kid, so I didn't even understand why, but it has always been at the back of my mind, like
Mm.
why, what caused this, like, and that caused me to be interested in understanding how society works. You know, like
Mm-mm.
understand psychology of individuals. I think from an early age I started exploring these concepts because
Yeah.
of all these things. Like I mean, yeah, like like suicide. You have people who commit suicide. It's
This is yeah.
very serious, right? Like
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
what would make a person, so full of
Desperate.
despair?
Yeah.
Yeah, that they would choose to end their lives. And how can people still like kind of continue with their lives knowing that these things happen?
Happen. Yeah. Yes. Really true. Especially as a child, experiencing that, and like you said,
Mm,
it's like it was in back of your head like all this time somehow.
mm,
This, yeah, 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 and with the pressure in the society, I think you put you on some place like you really asking yourself, wondering why all that, why all this pressure, why you know I'm not
yeah,
able to find something else somehow.
yeah.
Mm-mm.
And yeah, precisely. And I was really confused why people are not prioritizing those issues. To me,
Mm-mm.
it's very strange. Like people are prioritizing grades, prioritizing getting a good job, moving
Mm-mm.
up in life. They want to achieve all the best.
Mm-mm.
And I was encouraged to live my life this way, to think of what is best for myself. Like um I'm not sure it was really for the best of myself, or like like they are just trying to fit me into their model of how things should work.
Yes, yeah,
but,
yeah, yeah. This is the truth, yeah, for sure.
but I
Mm-mm.
felt like I was not encouraged to like pursue the things that really matter to me. Like for example, I feel that like yeah, I think this was maybe uni was a turning point for me. So when I went to
Mm-mm.
uni, I had a bit more freedom, like I
Yeah.
could study what I liked. So I studied design in uni. So
Oh,
I moved away from academics because I was sick of like just theory and academic. I wanted to like think out of the box more.
oh,
So
yes, yes, yeah,
um
yeah,
I chose something really kind of unexpected. I chose to do a
yeah.
creative field. And you know what people would think of the creative field in Singapore is that it doesn't earn money, or like
Yeah,
they think, or maybe it's an Asian mindset, I don't know, but like doing
you can
anything
criticize.
creative or
Mm-mm.
arts related, they think that, oh, is this gonna like even like you earn a livelihood or something like that. But
Yeah.
anyway, I went to uni, and that was quite a turning point for me. Firstly, I did something that I was more interested in, like
Yeah.
creative related thing.
Mm-mm.
Secondly, it made me realize that I would say uni is like a more closer model of society. Was
Yes.
I think school is a model of society. In school, we are, already under certain pressures and, you know,
Mm-mm.
like teachings to be a certain way. And I think in uni, it was even a closer model of society, because now you are kind of given a bit like
Yeah.
more treated more like an adult, and then also you kind of choose to specialize in, your
Mm.
own field. And
Yeah.
like now you also start to be more serious about your career, like your future, after you
Yes.
graduate. Yeah, so you have to
Oh.
start preparing for that. So I
Mm-mm.
felt that in uni,
When you say uni, what country exactly it is? Uni. I
a
cannot see.
university.
Uni. Oh, okay, yeah, university. Yes,
Oh,
okay, okay.
sorry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We
I
just
thought we were
say,
talking about uni, country, like a United Kingdom. I said, oh,
oh, no, no, no.
yes,
Like,
university. Okay.
yeah, sorry. We use a short form uni. Yeah, so I
Yes,
mean in university.
yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I think in uni I realized that, okay, yeah, like uh I had even more realizations then, and actually I had kind of quite a full blown existential crisis then,
Yeah, yeah.
because so I think what I realized in uni, even though I chose to do something that I like to do, I thought that would make me happy, that would solve my problems.
Mm-mm.
But what I found out is that it actually isn't too much different. Like
Mm.
the same kind of values and mindset was still there. Like I would give an example. So I used to think people cared too much about grades,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I wanted to do design. Design, the curriculum in design school was more like on projects. So
Yes.
yeah, um, it's not, the grade doesn't really matter, but more like the outcome of your project,
Mm-mm.
you know. And that really appealed to me, because now I can do something that I felt was more like, um, you know,
Creative.
uh, creative. Yeah, like something that has a more like tangible outcome rather than like the
Oh,
grades.
yes. Yeah, the grades there are not yeah, just
Yeah.
yeah. Mm-mm.
And I
Yeah.
also thought like, oh, if I hated like, the kind of like uh um uh uncreative life, then if I went to
Mm.
design school and did something creative, then
Mm-mm.
I'll probably be like happier, like
Yeah.
more exciting, or my job will be more exciting. I won't just be doing like office work that's dealing with paperwork. So that was
Mm-mm.
my image, and I thought that, yeah, like, so if I go to design school, things will change. But I
Yeah.
realized that it wasn't too much different, because um yeah, so I had to work with people, right? Like during project works, I had to work with people, and I think I learned that people focus too much on work itself. Like
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
especially like design students, they are a bit like more perfectionist.
Yeah.
So they were just like too focused on work.
Yeah.
So now they are not obsessed with the grades, but they are still obsessed with the work.
The work, the achievement. Probably it's the continuity, of the mindset, from
Yeah,
before, yeah. Did you feel like the continuity? There's
yeah.
no break in between. Yeah. Mm-mm.
Yeah, it's a mindset. So that's when I had this understanding that this is a mindset problem. This is a cultural problem. It's
Mm.
not so much what I was doing.
Mm-mm.
Like, yeah, I had several like experiences where when I was doing a project, uh and I was going through some, yeah, in uni I went through some like emotional breakdowns. I think because of
Mm.
like my depression, that was unresolved. So
Yeah.
I really had some mental health struggles, and um yeah, like I there was a classmate in my cohort who passed away from
Mm-mm.
cancer. at such a young age, like at 21 or something. And
Yeah.
there were things happening in life that was like really like a very valid reason for me to despair.
Mm-mm.
But I felt like I was supposed to shut off my emotions.
Oh.
I felt like I couldn't even feel, because if I feel, I will despair and I can't do my work.
Mm-mm.
And my
Mm.
groupmates were actually like, I felt that they were focusing more on the work. They
Yeah.
they they saw these struggles as kind of like a burden, like.
Mm-mm.
And I'm not trying to just like blame it on them. Like I would say most people do this even to themselves. Like I
Yeah.
observed in school, people just like suppress their emotions, suppress their mental health struggles,
Yeah.
just to continue like
The
performing.
work. Yeah. Mm-mm.
And it's like you have to be a robot. I felt
Yeah. To
very
become a machine.
strongly.
Yeah.
I
Mm-mm.
felt very strongly I was like a robot.
Mm-mm.
And I hit this low in my life. Yeah, like I hit a very low point where I was considering dropping out because I was so
Mm.
disappointed by like what I
Yeah.
observed, like the lack of compassion
Yeah.
from the people I was working with, and the kind of obsession that people had with work,
We work.
like,
Mm.
oh, we have a presentation tomorrow, oh, we have to submit this and we have to make sure it's perfect. It's like it's
Nothing
like
about life in background. It's always performing, performing, performing.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And I felt like that's not right, like if this if even someone dying doesn't
Yeah.
matter, if even someone being depressed and almost like thinking of dying doesn't matter, then what
Oh,
matters, right? What
really?
matters, right? Like I think
Oh.
this crisis is about like what values are at stake. I felt that this was a very severe misalignment with my own values,
Mm-hmm.
because I always cared more about these kind of things. Like, I feel like we need values that we live for. Like we
Yeah,
need
sure.
a core, like be it like um people. Like I believe, yeah, people should be the core. Like why do we do all this work if we don't care about people?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
yeah, I feel like we have, yeah, gone off track. Like what's the
Mm.
purpose of progress? What's the purpose of uh like doing all these things if it was if you the people are forgotten, like the
Yeah,
the well-being of the people around you,
yeah.
their
They're not
happiness,
they're not relevant.
their health.
Finally. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like almost like it doesn't matter. And yeah, I just hit this low.
Yeah.
I was like so depressed, and I
Yeah.
had to go to the psychiatrist at my university health center.
Mm-hmm.
And the psychiatrist, oh, that was also like a very huge blow for me. The
Mm-hmm.
psychiatrist was like lacking compassion. So
Oh.
she was just like very busy. She kept telling me how busy she was. Like, oh, she had many
Oh,
uh
come on.
patients in the
Uh-uh.
uni. And like I was just one of like I felt like I was just one name in her long list,
In
to
long
look at.
list. Yeah.
Yeah. And each time I visit her, she just asked me, so do you feel more energy now? No. Or do
Mm.
you feel more, like she gave me antidepressant. And she was like, okay, do you feel more energy? How do you feel? Then I was just supposed to say yes or no. And
Yeah.
then she will,
Oh.
yeah,
This is
that's,
not helping at all.
then I
This is
felt, yeah, I
yeah.
felt very dehumanized. That was what I felt.
Mm. Mm-mm.
Dehumanized. Yeah, extremely dehumanized. I was just like
Yeah.
a robot going to
Yeah.
be serviced and to serve my purpose, to serve my function
Yeah.
in, the society or
Yeah. The
something.
big play of society. Exactly. Like a little piece
Yeah.
of the big play, And if you don't
Mm,
work, yeah, it's like there is no somehow that you are somehow useless if you don't work somehow. Is it the thing
mm,
you
mm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like I'm not supposed to feel. If I feel, then I'm gonna be useless. Then
Mm-mm.
like be unproductive, and uh then I have no use. So it relates back to the self-worth. Like we derive too much of our worth from work, I believe,
Yeah.
um, and from performance. That
Yeah.
like there's no affirmation of like what our um inherent worth is. Like
Mm-hmm.
our worth as a human being, our worth
Yeah.
as a, like um, our worth of our personality. It's almost like it doesn't matter at
Doesn't
all.
exist.
So
Yeah. So sad. It's a biggest part of you. This is the thing. This is why yeah, this is why you add this, really, hard time to feel alive. Because yeah,
yeah,
actually work is just a little part of who you are. And
mm,
so sad that society, came to that point that they don't, uh,
mm,
yeah, put, the other side of the human side, in the front of, the society. They don't take care of this part. And yeah,
mm,
I feel you. I feel you. I feel your, the pain you had there back then.
mm,
Um, yeah. So my question
yeah.
is, how did you make the leap, outside the box? How did it happen?
Mm.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, due to those incidents I described, like it was like kind of like breaking points.
Yeah.
It tested me again and again. Like I went through a lot of disappointment at the kind
Yeah.
of um, things that I was trying to seek help, but like the more I did, right, the more I uncovered very disturbing things about the state of the reality,
Mm-hmm.
of our society and things like that. And
Yeah.
I I felt like I was willing to persevere. I had it in me. I have perseverance. It's part of my culture. It's part of my upbringing. But I
Yes.
think that there's no point to persevere on for something that is clearly going nowhere. You know,
Mm.
yeah,
Yes.
you don't persevere for things like that. But
Yeah.
um, it took me, I guess, like these kind of events that pushed me, to realize that okay, I have to change. I have to take a responsibility for myself
Yeah.
now. If no one
Yeah.
can help me, I've
Mm-mm.
approached counselors, I've approached teachers and psychiatrists, psychotherapists,
Psychiatrist. Yeah.
my
People who are,
friends.
supposed to help you actually.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
because like my friends couldn't. I mean, of course, we don't go to those last resorts. There's also kind of stigma around like seeking help from professionals. I mean, like there's just
Yeah.
I probably tried everything I could, but I realized that the people around me can't even like really offer a solution. They'll just say like, oh, it's stress. Are you stressed? So like how to manage stress. And they tell
Yeah.
me, yeah, how I should manage stress, like go and de-stress. But that's just like the bandage, right? That's not like going
Mm-mm.
to the root of the problem.
Yeah.
And the root is just so deep. I had spent
Mm-mm.
I had to spend years to like uncover the roots. So
Yes. Yeah.
I think
By
my
yourself.
yeah, like, I think so that was the work I did. I
Yeah.
decided when I was maybe someone around the final year of my uni, when I was going to graduate soon, I
Yeah.
started really, yeah, thinking in my mind that, okay, I have to do something different. Like I have to
Mm.
stop this. Like doesn't make sense for me to keep going on, um,
Mm-mm.
being so depressed and still pushing myself in the way that everyone's going. I remember I was in the canteen and I was looking all around me. Everyone was doing like going about their lives, being busy, and I was just thinking, actually, for what? And I wonder if any of them could tell me a good enough reason that why we should do this. But I had a feeling
Yeah.
that probably not. So I think at that moment I was thinking, can I be shown something different? I want to be shown something different about
Mm.
the possibility of my life. Like,
Yeah.
everything I've experienced so far,
Mm-mm.
everything that I've been told by people so far is that you have no choice. Yeah, mostly people will say when I highlight these kind of problems, oh, don't you think there's a problem in our society or something? Most people have this attitude that you have no choice. uh,
Mm.
it's just like that, and it's like they have a very huge sense of like powerlessness regarding it.
Mm. Yeah.
And I think it has got to do with some like generational thing as well because of the history, but um
Yeah.
but yeah, like I was like I realized that okay, then I have to set myself this huge challenge to find out what other possibility my life can have.
Yeah.
I want to know that life can be something more. I
Yeah.
I knew it in me that it must be something more. It can't be like this, right? Life can't be so depressing.
Absolutely. Ah, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yes.
So Yeah, I think in my final year of uni, I started doing things a bit differently. Like most students were searching for jobs already, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't. So I just
Really?
like, okay, I did the work that I had to graduate. But
Oh.
okay, it was also when there was the pandemic, COVID pandemic. So
Oh, okay, yeah.
um, it gave me kind of like a um also kind of like an excuse to take a break. So I didn't go and try to search for a job, but instead I
Hello,
was,
hello, Sin. It's got him.
oh, yeah, so it was during the COVID, and it kind of gave me an excuse as well to like just take a break for now. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
since it's like the world has kind of changed a bit, so I took a gap year. Yeah,
Oh,
uh,
yes. Yeah.
I took a gap year, and it's not common, still not common to take a gap year. Uh,
In the
in
country.
in my country or in Asia at least. I think it's quite common in Europe, I've heard, but
Yeah.
it's not common here. In here, it's like you gotta keep going, like quickly graduate and get a job. So
Yeah.
if you take a gap year and there's no good reason, like so-called good reason, I think most people would say you are losing out. Like you are
Mm, yeah,
you
wasting your time. Uh,
wasting your time. Yeah, they think that you are losing out potential income. You're also losing out in terms of like your resume, because like, oh, you have a gap year, then um,
yeah, yeah.
employer will question if you know whether you're competent to do a job. Then
Ah, yes, yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, I
Understand.
feel so sad about that. Like, huh? Like, so I can't find myself.
Yeah,
So like it's very strange. It's like um I think a gap year is a wonderful idea, because we have worked continuously so
yeah.
hard throughout
From
our,
school to uni
yeah,
to work,
which is
yeah, space.
how many years, like 16 years. Yeah, I think I worked continuously for 16 years, in non-stop. I didn't have a chance to even pause and like
To breathe.
question my life.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
if I'm taking 1 year off, and that will mean I lose out, that is a very, like I feel it's quite crazy.
It's
And
quite courageous actually. From using to do this, especially from you know a cultural society like yours, where the pressure is so high, and the conformity as well, is so high. Yeah,
mm,
yeah, for sure. It's so courageous, from you, the way that you decided, to say no, no, no. I need a gap here, and this is when
yes.
you decide to go to New Zealand, right?
Um, New Zealand was not available. I mean, that was not an option back then, because the borders were closed. So that
Yes,
was
I
the
remember. Yeah,
pandemic.
yeah.
Yeah, borders was
During the
closed. So
COVID.
I actually
Yeah.
didn't think about that at all. I
Mm.
just thought I needed this gap year to work on myself, to
Mm.
work on my, to really pause and
Yeah.
heal and
Okay.
question and introspect and do all the inner work or whatever. Like I
Yeah.
was willing to take a responsibility for that at that point of my life,
Mm-mm.
because I know that if I don't change, nothing will. Nothing outside can change
Can
at the
change.
moment
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely.
So I really needed to take that pause, even
Yeah.
though I know it won't be viewed favorably upon. Like people would question, like,
Yeah.
oh, when are you finding a job? Like I did get a lot of questions like that. Like when are you getting finding a job? Keep asking me things like that, and I
Mm-mm.
just had to like tell myself that no, I need this time. I need to look at what's going on, like what is
Yeah.
been
But
suppressed
yeah,
inside me.
instead of
Yeah.
you. Yeah, exactly. Huh? Yeah.
So
This is
that
a
was when I did the inner work.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was your
I
leap. So yeah.
I was, yeah, like it was a breakthrough, I think, because no
Mm-mm.
one around me I knew took a gap year. Like they just went immediately to the workforce. But I was
To
like,
the
no,
work.
no,
Yeah.
no, I can't. I have to take a gap year. And some people try to make their gap year productive so that they can say, oh, I did this and that during the gap year.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
then
Try to stay.
and
In
they
the
can
yeah.
you sell yourself. But I didn't. I actually did nothing. I mean, I did some things,
Yeah.
but I did. Like I tried to learn some courses online.
Mm-mm.
I did that at my pace, which is very slow. But I'm a person like that. Like I process things. I need time to process. I need space to process
Yes.
things.
Yes.
And I think it worked out very well for me,
Mm-mm.
because during that time when, also, like, that's perhaps the silver lining of the pandemic, because during the pandemic many programs were closed. So
Yeah, yeah.
initially I could have joined programs or join volunteer or do a lot of things, but because those were not options, I could not go overseas as well, I could not do anything back home, so I was kind of given, um, kind of forced to
Mm-mm.
do kind of inner work things. So I just went to
Mm.
the library, I read a lot of books, I read whatever I was truly interested in. I read philosophy, I read like spirituality, I read on
Yeah,
psychology or sociology, all
yeah.
these things that actually I'm interested in. Like these
Mm-mm.
are my intellectual interests, and also like things that I wasn't given the time before to explore because I had
Yeah.
to study for them. So I just
Mm-mm.
allowed myself to explore what I truly wanted. And it was during that time that I started writing my blog as well. Then I started
Yeah,
giving just writing whatever I felt like writing. Now
yeah.
I'm not writing essay questions. I'm not writing what school wants me to write. I'm just
Yes.
writing what I want to write.
Yes, yeah. What you
And
feel like a yeah.
it turns out, yeah, it turns out that I like to write about life. So I started
Mm-mm.
writing about life things, like philosophical things. Whenever I read I get inspiration, then when I get inspiration I go and write. But all
Yes, yeah,
this
yeah.
takes a lot of space and time, and because I was not working, so I was able
Yeah.
to do that. And then I also wake up whenever I want to. I'm not actually a morning person, but for many years I had to go against my body
Yeah, you
clock,
will. Yeah.
and it was very difficult. I suffered from like chronic fatigue because of this. But during this
Yeah.
time, I was able to just listen to my body. Like, okay, my body feels tired, I just sleep and
Yes.
rest more.
Yes.
If
Yeah.
you know, and I just follow the rhythms of my body,
Mm-mm.
and I experimented with
Yeah.
my lifestyle during this time. Like, okay, I sometimes I go out and take a walk.
Mm-mm.
If I stay home too much,
Yeah.
I realize it's not good for me. And so it was about like, you know, finally I respected my the rhythm of my body.
Yeah, the biological, your biological nature, and you follow it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mm-mm.
and and like I also allowed myself to explore these things. So I feel
Yeah.
like after I did all these things, I could start to notice some changes. Like,
Mm-mm.
for example,
In
at
which way?
first, for example, at first um it wasn't that easy actually to do nothing.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, I see. Yeah, especially where you're used to, like when you used to, to hustle.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like,
it's
because
challenging to do nothing.
in my country it's like a fast-paced type of life. It's like the constant like hustling. We are very used to this since education system, like
Yeah.
makes us used to that. So
Mm-mm.
actually this is quite misaligned with me, because I'm more of a slow person. Like, I'm quite sensitive
Yeah.
person. I
Yeah.
My personality type is the one that needs like a
Yeah.
lot of time
Space
to,
and time, like you said.
yeah, like
Yeah.
attune to
Yeah.
my
Like a
self. But
downstream, downstream, effort. You still
mm,
doing things, but in your rhythm,
mm, mm,
slow, rhythm that according to your,
yeah.
own,
So I
wisdom.
knew it was misaligned. So that's why during the gap year I consciously tried to overcome this hustling thing. So I forced myself to do nothing. But even that was more difficult than it sounds. It's like I felt guilty. At first I felt guilty. Like, if I don't do something, I feel guilty. And then I feel anxious as well. I felt a kind of compulsion to be doing something.
Mm, mm, mm,
And
mm.
then I
Yet
realized
it's
that,
programmed to do that, So your body is still like fighting. Okay, let's do the usual thing.
yeah, because our bodies can indeed be conditioned
Yeah,
to be addicted to stress. You know,
yeah,
uh,
exactly. Yeah,
it is true. I've realized that, I was like feeling guilty, but actually I know that I don't have to be doing something. But why do I feel guilty? So that was like,
mm,
that gave me an opportunity to explore my inner landscape. Like the kind of programming that I've received,
yes,
conditioning, You know, I was asking myself, where does this guilt come from? And then I explored, you know, the interplay between my emotions and my subconscious, you know,
Yes, yeah.
and my programming. And that was when I just basically studied myself.
You start to
And
see yourself.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I, you know, I tried to overcome that. And yeah, after a few months, I felt that, yeah, it was lessening. I felt less guilt, you know. And also there was fear. At the
Mm-hmm.
start there was fear because I was not doing what everyone else was doing, you know.
Yeah.
Then you will feel fear because, like, oh, you know, if I'm not doing this, am I, like, you know, like,
I
on the
am
wrong track?
yeah, something wrong with me? This question,
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
a lot of fear came out as well. But I was like, yeah, like, this is not, I know, consciously know that this is not what I want. So I also set myself to try to work with this fear. You know,
Mm.
I allowed this fear to come out, but at the same time I you know, just
You
like
went through it.
went through it, yeah.
Yeah,
And I mean, with compassion, yeah, with constant compassion for myself.
yeah.
And over time, I also noticed that, yes, I started to feel less fear about deviating from people.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So
You see,
less
yeah, yeah,
less fear, less anxiety.
yeah.
So yeah, I could see the results of what I was doing. So
Yeah.
um yeah, like
What is
I
the thing? Yeah, what is the thing? Sorry, I got you. What is the thing you think the most challenging thing once you step outside the box?
most challenging thing.
People pressure. What is the thing? Like
Yeah,
the
I would say it's this thing about your own conditioning. That I think that's the
mm,
most challenging because
mm,
it doesn't really matter, like, what you can't control the outside. Like, people are gonna say what they say, right? Like, oh, uh, they might say things to scare you, like, oh, like, if you don't do this, then how can you survive? Or like they might
yeah, yeah.
they might say, oh, like, you are not being responsible or whatever.
Mm, mm,
They can say whatever they like, but what matters is your own response to it, right? Like, you
mm,
can choose to um, not accept what they say, or you can actually internalize what they say and
yeah, yeah,
give
yeah,
in,
yeah,
and
yeah.
give in to the fear, or give in to, because, yeah, okay, what I realized when I took the gap year was that it's actually much more easier to just follow everyone else. That's the easier
Yes,
thing to do.
yes, yeah, yeah. It's the earth mentality, when you're doing like everybody. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
there's
Like
a
there's something like
psychological.
the wind is blowing on your back. You just have to let it go. But when you choose to step outside of this, it's like you're going, against the current.
Mm, mm,
Is it
mm.
this? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I realized that, yeah, actually it's much easier for me to just follow people. There's a set path, you know, and I find the safety of being in a group, you know, there's
Yeah.
some kind of psychological comfort in that. Yeah,
Mm,
there is a payoff. There is this kind of payoff for conforming.
mm.
It's the psychological comfort, you know,
Yeah,
safe.
the comfort. Yeah, absolutely.
But you know, I after all my experiences, I know that this is not what is good for me. I know that this is not what I really wanted. So that's why I had to, yeah, like, the hardest thing was overcoming the the initial, you know, like, all the fear and guilt, all the conditioning, you know, that
Hello?
was holding me back.
Yeah, I said, yeah, it was cutting. Yeah.
Yeah,
What
the
did you say?
hardest thing.
Sorry.
So the hardest thing for me is actually dealing with all this inner conditioning that is holding my.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The
Yeah,
in the struggle. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
To let the place, to make the place like the you true self, and
Mm, mm,
to let go the old programming that are keeping you away from your authentic self.
yeah, yeah. So I realized
Mm.
it's a me versus me thing, not me versus
Yeah,
them. Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it is where I got into, like, spiritual work, and I started to, like read
yeah.
up on that as well. And I realized that, yeah, actually a lot of our blind spots, you know, like, a lot of our problems comes from blind spots like this. Like, we always think it's the
Yes.
outside that is
Mm.
causing the problem, but actually, as long as you think that, then you won't take a responsibility for your for your own life, right? Like, because you
Yeah.
think you're not playing a part in it, but actually you are also playing a part. Let's say by choosing to stay with the status quo, that's also your own choice, right? Like
Yeah.
because actually getting something from it, like maybe psychological safety or something, and
Mm-mm.
then you are not taking like like actively controlling your life. Yeah, but what I committed to doing during the gap year was to take responsibility for my
On your
life
life,
and
yeah. Mm-mm.
really do the hard things, me versus me, trying to
Yeah.
like overcome my inner conditioning, trying to, like find out who I am, like further my self-knowledge and self-acceptance,
Mm-mm.
yeah, I think during this time I also found out more about myself, like what I truly enjoyed doing, what I
Yeah.
truly believe in, and I
Yeah.
kind of like had a more refined worldview,
Mm-mm.
from all my study and things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, so after the gap year, like I think like I changed and then I started getting more into like coaches, like I was
Mm-mm.
following the work of some coaches and what they wrote resonated with me. And actually
Mm.
I chanced upon this coach, like the very first life coach that I chanced upon.
Yeah.
His work really inspired me. So he's a like kind of like a nomad, he's a
Yeah.
nomad.
Uh-huh.
And he traveled around the world. After he graduated, uh, he writes. He's very interesting because he's like quite a philosophical person. Like he majored
Oh,
in philosophy, yeah.
okay.
And so he was like, think after he graduated, he was like also thinking what to do with his philosophy degree. But then
Oh.
afterwards, he went abroad to teach English. I think went to Korea, and then
Mhm.
afterwards he started traveling the world and he started writing about his experiences, like how these things actually like challenge the mainstream way of life that we have been
Mm.
conditioned to accept.
Mm-mm.
And he sort of reported his findings, and I just found what he wrote really resonating with me.
With
Like,
your experience, yeah.
yeah, what
Mm.
like at that time when I was tired of my life, what he wrote, I think he wrote something about why we are tired of our life in modern society, and
Yeah.
it was like a diagnosis, whoa, like he gave the actual diagnosis.
Yes.
and
Yeah.
and the fact that he actually went around traveling and getting um new experiences, and it showed me that there is a possibility of my life being something else,
Something
radically
else.
different. Yeah, radically different. And I
Yeah.
was just like, yeah, then I was just during this time I was just like following my inspiration. So whichever writers like I got inspired by, I try to look at how they live their life, you
Yeah.
know and um I I was starting to like find true role models. Wow,
Mm.
like this is a person whom I want to become like,
Yeah.
then
You look
I
up.
shall
Yeah.
follow, like I shall, I mean, yeah, like I just want to be going in that direction. And
Yes. Yes.
I think that's when I realized that I wanted to be nomadic. Yeah, like,
Okay. Yeah.
I wanted to
Yeah.
go
So
travel the
it
world.
inspired you.
I'm willing to give up a career, like,
Yes.
and do that. And so, um, I think it was 2 years after the pandemic, or
Yeah.
yeah, 2 years, the borders finally opened, and then I found this opportunity to go to
To
New
go
Zealand.
New Zealand. Ah, so
Big
yeah,
place.
it was after that. Okay, I see now.
Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
you take first you take your gap year, and then
Mm.
at the end of your gap year, you decide to go to New Zealand rather than to take back your career.
Oh no, I worked for a year after my gap year. I
Oh,
worked for
okay,
1 year with some
okay.
friends from my university. They were very good people. Like we were very
Oh,
aligned.
you
So
told me that. Yeah, yes,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
In
So
the business
I
that started a startup, something like that.
yeah, a startup. I really
Yes.
like the energy of a startup because in a sense, like they were also like-minded people. They, like
Mm-mm.
people who try to do their own thing. I think
Yeah, yeah.
very different traits, like they are more risk takers and like more
Mm-mm.
visionary and like uh very open-minded people. So like
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
I really liked working with them. And
Mm-mm.
that I mean, but I mostly like, yeah, I worked because I needed to save up a bit of money, and also it was a pandemic, so I still couldn't travel. But as soon as the borders opened, I
Mm-mm.
was like, yeah, I told my boss that there's this opportunity for me to go abroad. And
Yeah,
he, as my friend, he understood me. He knew what my dreams were. He was
yeah.
like, okay, yep, you finish up your work, then you can go.
Go
I'm
for
like
it.
very grateful for him. Like, I'm very grateful for my colleagues whom I worked with because they were very
Yeah.
inspirational to me and they supported my dreams. Yeah.
Amazing.
So
This is yeah, yeah. This is a really
mm,
yeah. a chance, to have this kind of, relationship with your colleague. And
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Mm-mm.
And I think all this started like what I learned is that it's very important to like come to be your true self, because if you don't be your true self, you actually can't attract people who are like your tribe, you know. Like I
Yes,
realized that
exactly.
after I allowed myself to be more and more of my true self and live
Mm.
my life more according to my true self, I realized that opportunities or like people started people who are more aligned with my true self,
Yeah,
like just started appearing in my life. And
naturally.
yeah,
Yeah.
naturally it's like
Yes.
some
Mm.
kind of, I guess there's a law of attraction or something, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there is no mistake about this. I thought
mm,
as well, from my own experience, and this is where, I really love to discuss about this with you, Sin, because I see some similarities,
mm,
between our story. Me as well, when I really decided to change my life, from a life without sense to a life, where I found myself again.
mm,
I was by myself. This is the thing, like you've done, no psychologist, no parents, no friends, no one, couldn't help me to find, to walk that path, of self
mm,
discovery and self ownership. And yes, and then in the day, I really, found out, because I really wanted it. I found the informations. I found, the right, mindset to get
mm,
in touch with my true self. I started to attract people like this, and then I
mm.
started to attract the people, like-minded people who willing to find themselves as well. Then, I met so many people, and then I met you, at this point. Yes, I said, yeah, because of that, there is like a, yeah, like you said, the law of attraction, happening when really making the change inside of you. You
Mm,
are already radiating, something around you that people can
mm,
feel. Can people, who are somehow doing the same travel, or
mm.
they're sensing it. You see what I mean? And
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That's how we could meet too. Yeah, that's why I always find it very faithful how the moment I took this leap, to go overseas,
overseas,
to
yeah.
go to New Zealand, then I met you. Then then you were telling me that, oh, you're doing working on the same thing, and then I just felt like, yeah, it's almost like fate. And I still find it very amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh yeah, like I find it very fateful how we met. Like the
yes,
moment I took this another leap, like of going overseas. Uh,
yes,
yeah, then I was all alone. It was quite scary, but I was like,
yeah,
yeah, like I had no idea what would happen in the next 1 year, of this, like
mm-mm.
uh taking this leap. And then the first day I met you, then then you are doing the similar thing as me, and like I just like got a lot of um yeah, like I felt very like, yeah, I was on the right track, because
Yes, yes.
yeah, like, so before that, I was when I was in the box, so I was just very uninspired, right? Like, and it was not aligned with me in the first place, like on many levels. Not aligned with my personality, my beliefs, my um yeah, and I think because of that, it was not inspiring me, because I believe yeah, like I was actually
Yes.
doing more things out of fear. And you see, there's fear and there's inspiration.
Mm,
I was living my life mostly under
mm.
fear, because what kept me in the box, I think what keeps most people in the box is fear, right?
Fear.
If
Yeah,
not, they would
yeah,
leap out.
exactly.
If there's no fear, they would. I mean, uh, fear is the main thing. But um,
Yeah,
so I think the thing when I leapt out of the box, right? It was an act of. It was not that there was no fear. I did manage to minimize the fear, but there was still fear. No, I can't say I
yeah.
have no fear as long as I'm a human. It's also part of my
No,
program. But
yeah,
it
yeah.
was a courageous act. And I think when you exercise courage in your life, and kind of take a bet, I was taking a bet that life could be
Mm-mm.
something more, right? I just wanted to
Yeah,
know
yeah,
there's
yeah.
something more, because my experience until then had been uninspiring, and not just uninspiring, but pretty depressing and painful. I
Yes, yes, yeah,
was in a lot of anguish, and
yeah.
I
I
just wanted
understand.
to know what could be more than that. Like, what could an experience that might be like even like the opposite of that? What could a life that I was crying from joy look like? Instead of crying from sadness.
Yes,
You
yes,
sometimes
absolutely.
have to kind of wonder about this kind of possibilities, and even if you're not there yet, okay, you wonder about it. And then, like, so for me, the moment when I took the leap and exercised courage, by taking a leap, um yeah, like I was able to see, like and I was able to experience something more than what I had experienced before. So
Yes.
now when I was in New Zealand, yeah, I was very connected to myself because I was traveling alone in a foreign place. It
Mm,
allowed me to connect very deeply to myself.
yeah,
And I think at that time I just felt like a child again,
yeah, yes,
like because a child just kind of also like living in this mode. They are like um they are not yet, programmed too much by the
yes, yeah,
outside,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So they just like act spontaneously, oh, I want to
yeah,
go here, I want to go
yes, yeah,
there.
yeah, exploring
Then
themselves.
like, yeah, just exploring
Mm,
themselves. Where do I want to go next? I
yes,
want to see
yes.
this, I want to see that. And I
Oh,
felt like, yeah, I was like a child again. I connected to a part of me that I have lost the connection with.
yeah.
And as a result, I remembered how it's like to feel alive.
Mm,
I
mm,
think I've forgotten that feeling, but
yeah,
I now I remembered how it's like. And it's so powerful because all of us have experienced this when we were young, but it was just gradually, lost or something, uh,
mm,
as we got more and more familiar and conditioned
yeah,
by the environment. So, yeah, like I remember I felt so alive. I was like so spontaneous, just doing and
yeah,
whatever I wanted and going wherever I wanted. And I was meeting new people and getting lots of new experiences.
mm,
I did a lot of things for the first time in my life. Like for example,
yeah.
experiencing snow. That was
Yes,
like the
yes, yeah.
first time in
I
my
saw
life.
the yeah. I read it in the article that you describe your experience in the Tekapo, right? Yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, Tekapo. Yeah, yeah. You described that. Yeah, it was the yeah almost yeah the first time you really feel like it
Hmm.
was great to be alive. In your life, and this is
Yeah.
amazing. This is really amazing the way that oh yeah, especially from where where you come from. Your story, and then to experience this really consciously in the way that oh okay, it's happening to me because I chose to go for it, and it's happening right now because I chose to experience this experience. You see what I mean? This is for me, wow, the
Mm.
biggest yeah, the biggest light point of your story, and really inspired me. Like wow, she came here in New Zealand. She came to New Zealand to experience that, and she succeeded. She succeeded, to make it happen for her. And this,
Mm.
when like you described that it was the first time you saw the snow and the wonder you had for me, like wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was like magic for me. It was like my childhood because it was my childhood dream, like growing up in a tropical country,
yeah,
that there's no seasons. I always wondered about seasons. And then now I'm like, yeah, I'm experiencing it. And I just felt like magic, and I was just in so much awe, like a
mm,
feeling of awe,
oh yeah,
and New Zealand, because it's spectacular for its nature, not just the seasons, but like it's
yeah,
just like super spectacular nature. And
yeah.
like,
The
I come from
sky, yeah, the
Singapore, which is
stars,
like a tiny island, right? And
yes,
I
really
think
cried that, right?
I can't even see a mountain, but like now I see a grand mountain landscape and like the grandeur of nature.
Yeah,
I realize that this is, yeah, I'm part of nature, but like ironically I can't like see these things. I
yeah,
couldn't see these, like
in
these features
Singapore,
of natures. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And like I just feel like, yeah, like that's what life, has to offer. And life has so much to offer, but like I was not like take I was not, like able to take it until like I decided that I was gonna take what life has to offer, you know
yeah,
and there's so much more to life. Like you can be, for example, the lifestyle in New Zealand was also very different from what I'm used to in Singapore. So if in Singapore it's very like fast paced and like people are like trying to like very uptight about things, but in
Yeah.
New Zealand the lifestyle was more like I would say it's slower paced, and people are just like kind of do a bit more laid back. You know, they
Yes.
prioritize like work-life balance more. You know, like they
Yeah.
enjoy
Exactly.
as much as they work hard, they enjoy as well.
Yeah.
Like there, for example, like they do a lot of nature related activities like
Yes. Yeah.
camping,
Yeah.
uh,
So much more connected to the nature as well. Yeah.
mm, mm,
Yeah.
boating or fishing. It's just
Hiking.
very different. Yeah, hiking. It's very
Yeah.
different from like what I'm used to. You know, and I see that like wow, like a different world can exist. The kind of direct opposite of what I had experienced. Uh,
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
uh there were so few people there as well. I am used to living in a very dense environment. Like Singapore is one of the most densely populated like places in the world. Like,
Yeah.
you know, we have 5+ million people, right? New Zealand
Yeah.
also have 5+ million people, but New Zealand has I think 300 times the land mass of
Land. Yes. Yeah. So much space for so people, so population, and yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think
So
it should be like it could be really a big shock for you in the way that coming from a country like really crowded like in
mm,
Singapore and go to that place where you feel like you was really in the middle of nature. You was in that vast space
mm,
that
mm, mm.
nature is, and quite an experience.
Yeah. And I like it. I find that it's probably more aligned with me, like, because I'm, into more slow living and kind of like just do my own thing. So I after I tried something different, then I can find out more options,
Yeah,
that oh, actually, this is a possibility. I
yeah,
think that's the point. It's not about where is better. I'm not saying like there is necessarily better than here or what, because there's also this phenomenon of grass being greener on the other side or something. But I think what we can find out, what we can gain when we take a step out of the box is we get
hmm,
a lot more options now to consider. Like, oh,
yes,
like I can do this or I can do that. Then you can find the one that fits you more, then you can
yeah.
live more aligned with
Aligned to you yourself. Yeah,
yourself.
you
Yeah.
have more perspective, right?
Mm.
Yes, more the no the horizon is brighter somehow, because when you stay in this bubble of your box, it's like you are trapped with that dark clouds that you can see just but is like a little bit around you, not that far.
Mm.
And
Mm.
yeah, and now you step out of that box. You see, holy shit, there is so much more things in life, so much more things
Yeah.
in the world. And yeah, it's like yeah, the way I felt it, it's like it's like the first time I opened my eyes. How did you feel it?
Mm.
The deepest experience, because it was like before I made my leap. It was I was
Mm.
like in a not a dream, but in a nightmare, in the bubble of nightmare, if I may say. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And once once I step out of the bubble, life start to happen to me instead of me being victim of my life. I don't know if you can recognize yourself in this.
I definitely feel like I'm in control of my life, like
Yeah,
more autonomy. Yeah, I feel more autonomy. It's much more fulfilling for me to live my life like that. Like
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Amazing. Yeah. So I have a last question for you, Sin. Because
Mm.
now the audience know you more and that see know more and know about your story, your background, where you from, and where you are currently. And the question I have today, where you want to go now? In the way that what is your yeah, where you want to,
Mm.
what is your vision for the future now?
Mm. So I plan to live a nomadic life in my 20s.
Yes, yes, amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
You are already doing it, right?
Yes, yes. Actually, now I'm back in Singapore, like from the New Zealand, trip. But
Yeah.
that I consider it very successful. I've really gained, like the experience I got was priceless, and uh now I'm back in Singapore from New Zealand. I've been
Mm.
there 1.5 years, and now I'm just like recharging for the next part of my journey. So
Yes.
I actually want to go to Australia next.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm not sure for how long, but I'll do the same thing, the working holiday thing,
Then, yeah.
because currently this arrangement suits what I want to like achieve and what is
Mm.
good for my well-being. So, like, I'm just gonna kind of continue this, and after
Yes.
that, I foresee like myself, yeah, like. So actually, one thing, I met my partner when I was in New Zealand.
New Zealand. Yes. Yeah.
He's
Amazing.
from Japan,
Mm.
yeah,
You,
and
you made
he's
you made an episode, podcast episode on your podcast actually, with him.
mm,
Yeah, an amazing episode actually. I listened
great.
to it. Yeah, the story is so amazing. So interesting, guys. If you have the opportunity, I will put the link actually in the description below, for Xin Lei, podcast, link. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, like I met my partner in New Zealand. Then he actually also has very similar values, and we happen to be on the same page regarding this goal of world travel, which I think I'm so lucky. Like, yeah, like I'm so lucky that I can meet someone who's on the same page. Because I never thought like I could find like a partner who accept that. Like if
Yeah.
I just in Singapore, I think most people find it too extreme. Yeah, like
Mm-mm.
um because yeah, like I have to give up my career to do this. So
Yeah.
basically, he will be traveling with me in for the yeah like for the rest of the journey. So I envision myself making this journey like up the globe, like
Yeah. Yeah.
from from New Zealand to Australia and to
Australia.
like
Yeah.
um, Indonesia, Philippines, the rest of Southeast
Yeah.
Asia,
Yeah.
and to China, and I hope to go
Yeah.
to Russia, to Eastern Europe,
Oh,
and then to Europe.
great.
Yeah, like
Europe, yeah, yeah. Come
I
over
have
here.
this
Yeah, I am currently in France,
vision, like
but yeah,
yeah,
but
I'll
I've
come
been
and
I've
fight.
been going to Australia as well, this year. So I think we are pretty much, the same plan for that. Yeah, for this year. Yeah, yeah. I'm going to Australia as
Yeah.
well, and but I'm planning to go
Hmm.
to Asia as well. To traveling around, and
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah,
it's so funny.
yeah. You should explore Asia. So it's like, yeah, like I don't know how I came up with this route. Like I just thought it was inspiring because it kind of reflected like, um, like I want there to be a meaning for my journey. It's not just that I want to like, oh, like go around and have fun and like, throw away my responsibilities. But it's like, yeah, so I think when I was at a low point in my life, I was just trying to set a big enough dream that inspires me, gives
Yeah.
me hope to
Yes.
continue. And I thought at some point that, okay, I want to go up the globe because I want to show that you had to go up in your life. Like the only way is to keep going up.
Yes. Yes. Actually,
if
yeah. Absolutely. I totally
if
agree.
you yeah, if you
This
hit
is
the
right.
rock bottom, right? There's no
Yeah.
way but to go up. Like that was how I felt when I was rock bottom. Like I was like, really, really going through a very tough time in my
Mm-mm.
life and I almost felt like giving up. But no, in those times I just needed to create like a hope for myself, and
Yeah.
I think this is a message that I want to give to people as well, that you can create hope. You have to hold on to hope in your life. If you're going to do something crazy and that crazy thing gives you a hope in your life, go for
Mm.
it, right? Like
Mm.
nothing will stop you. Yeah, so my crazy dream is this, like I want to travel the world in this upward fashion. And
Yes.
like I
Absolutely.
think, yeah, I think I can spend my 20s doing that. I just have like maybe 5 years, 4 or 5 years
4 years.
more. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
seems
Amazing.
like a long time, but actually, I think our 20s are like will pass by very fast. So
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
like,
Supposed
yeah,
to
like
be. Your 20s is supposed to be, about exploring.
mm,
To get, a life, worth living. This is my opinion, because people are,
Okay.
like you said before, people are, tend to rush in life, after, school, then a career, then a family. They didn't take a breath, like a break in between.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then
yeah.
in the 40s, they start to wonder what his life is for. But I think it's too late at 40. You should do that, yeah, like you're doing currently at your 20s, Yeah,
Yeah, I think the
yeah.
20s is like your prime. I feel so. But like even so, yeah, like I feel really excited about this vision. Like it is the big like vision, like for my life currently. And I also envision that I will write a book about it. Like I hope
Oh,
to,
amazing.
yeah, like about like this journey of life and journey of world travel, like lessons that I learned. Like I yeah, like I had this vision, like, and it keeps me going. But yeah, like even so, um yeah, like I know that like some people might think about it, and in fact I think I've already received some kind of these comments from my relatives. For example,
Oh,
I think they would think that it's a bit irresponsible of me, to do these kind of things,
yeah,
like
yeah.
because they are seeing it from their own lenses, of like
Yes,
what
exactly.
duty, like my duty to my family. For example, they think
Yeah.
that because I give up a career, I give up like
Mm-mm.
financial stability, then I can't
Stability.
give my parents money, then that's
Mm-mm.
unfair. Like I'm
Yeah.
supposed to pay my parents money. So this is coming from cultural expectations, and I expected it to happen. But I asked myself again and again, would I still chase this dream, or would I just like, back down from this because I don't want to be criticized or something? And I asked myself a lot of times. It's really not easy for me. Like even though this dream is really exciting, it's just like I know how it can be perceived. Like people
Mm.
would think like I'm being reckless. I think someone also said it's unsustainable or something like that. But
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
but
There's so
how
much
would
more.
you
Yeah,
know? Like you don't know, right? Like
yeah, yeah. So much more
yeah,
expectation. They don't even try it. And then
yeah.
they put a lot of labels on it.
I think these things are to be expected. Like there's just so much complexity around it. Like
Yeah,
like I know it's there, but then like yeah, like that's why I think it's also not easy to be part of this generation, because it might seem like we have a lot more choices, but at the same time there are these kind of social constraints that are holding us back. And
mm-mm.
I have to admit it's hard. There are times when I feel isolated. I feel like oh, am I being a bad child, or like am I being really reckless with my life? But no matter how much I think about it, like I always come back to the same conclusion. I have to do this because my entire life experience has led me to come to this point, and I have been shown that
Yeah,
this is, like I asked for life to show me that that there is something more, and I have
yeah,
been shown, like that it can be something more. And I feel that this is actually perhaps my duty, to show it to other people, like
other people.
the people
Exactly.
of my generation. Like I really
Mm-mm.
wish, how much I can show this to people, that your life can really be something more. You can rise above the fear
Yeah.
that people
Mm-mm.
have placed on you. You can,
Mm-mm.
and I want this to happen because I don't think there's any point in like progress if we are not, going to move up to like I think, at some point when we fulfill our basic needs, we do have to kind of move up to the higher needs, right? We can't deny that these are
Yes, yeah.
also needs,
Mm-mm.
to
Yeah,
be true to yourself, to
yeah,
value things more than yourself. So what I'm doing now,
yeah,
I also see it as like it's not just my own, like for my own life. I'm actually trying to like uh hopefully lead by my example. That
yeah, yeah,
oh yeah, because when I think about the future generation, okay, I think
yeah,
about, like, let's say I have children.
yeah,
I
yeah.
can't imagine that I put them through the same box. I can't imagine that I tell them
Mm.
your life should be
Yeah,
like
true,
this. I think
true.
that is immoral. Like I can't have kids and do this to them. So I thought about this issue.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
I thought about it, and I actually discussed it with my partner before, because we like to talk about, just like discuss about
Yeah.
philosophical stuff. So
You feel like the need to break the cycle. Is that it?
yeah, break the cycle.
Yeah,
We are
yeah,
saying like, what do we actually want to tell our kids? let's say if we have kids, I'm still thinking about that because there's a lot more things, but like, let's say if I have kids, I want them to know that your life can have so many possibilities, and I want them to experience the joy of life as much as, there's suffering in life, that there is joy. You can find the joy of being so true to yourself and like actualizing your true potential. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to tell them, oh, this is what you have to do. You have no choice. You have to follow it.
Mm-mm.
Otherwise, you are a bad kid. You don't follow me. Wow,
Yeah.
that is, like I see so much of that happening in my generation that I feel almost like angry, about it. Sometimes I think about it. I feel angry. I feel upset. But like, yeah, come back to the same conclusion. Like, we like this kind of evolution is difficult. Like, it's
Yeah.
kind of painful. We have to do a lot of conditioning. I had to do that.
Deconditioning actually. You have to like
y-
demental your conditioning and then come back
yeah,
to your true self. This is
yeah.
the double work actually.
Mm,
Deconstruct it and then reconstruct. And I've heard that as well. And yeah, you're right. This is the challenge of our generation. The
mm, mm,
big challenge of our generation, because we see it more and more, like you said, that we don't want to give that to our children, as as a legacy, because we
mm,
see, we see all the suffering it's creating, all the misery it's creating, to our parent and to ourselves. But the big news is we are capable to do it. It's not
mm,
impossible. This is the message you're sending, I think, here, that you telling people that it's possible to anyone to do this in the
mm,
in it's in his own scale actually. And yeah, this is the path, like you you show people that it's possible, and that this is, I think, so amazing. Like you said, you are leading by example for that. And yeah, it's amazing scene. And
mm.
I would say thank you very much for your story. It was so inspiring. And do you have anything else to add, about, probably